Hey everybody, welcome into the Beehive. I'm your host, the Bee at LLC, and this is where we stack precious metals like it's pollen and nectar. Our pollen is silver and our nectar is gold, preserving our wealth as honey of old. And like ancient metals, we hold our own. And today I want to talk a little bit about the jump in silver and some of the common statements that are out there. Yes, there's truth behind them, but how much truth? And we want to dive into a few of these topics tonight. And I have my good friend Space Miner up here with me, and we're going to talk about this. And we're going to start with silver and gold. So my title is Silver and Gold Value Compared to Other Commodities like Bread, etc., and the silver to chicken ratio. And the silver to chicken ratio is something that Space Miner has heard me talk about a few times at least, and probably a few others of you. And whilst silver has been tamped down for such a long period of time, and a lot of people know about this, a lot of people talk about the manipulation, but whether you believe it was manipulated or not, during this long period of fairly low valued silver, there are some metrics that you can watch to see that silver at least does a pretty good job of keeping up with inflation on certain items. Like in, say, my father's era, you could buy a gallon of gas with a silver dime. Well, even before this last run up in silver, you could say a year ago, when silver was $3 a gallon, or $2.50 to $3, that's what a dime is going for. And so over that 40-year period, silver has been able to keep its value in compared with gasoline, and chickens is another one of these things that I've been watching for quite a while. And while the value is not being realized in silver, you can look at a chicken hen in the marketplace, and usually you can buy one chicken for the value of 1 ounce. And this has been kind of a ratio that some of us that have been following silver for quite a while have watched and joked about. And so that leads into a common statement of careful what you wish for, because if you have silver at $100, your loaf of bread's going to cost you $100. I don't know how many times I've heard this. And I just want to talk about it a little bit, because in some sense I agree with that, in that yes, what we're walking through right now is a monetary problem. It's a fiat problem. We've left the reality of silver and gold as our monetary standard, and somebody has a magic money hat and has been printing too much fiat money. And when that happens, you get what people refer to as runaway inflation, or at worst, hyperinflation. And that's where you see in like Weimar Germany, examples people use is, they were using wheelbarrows to haul their fiat paper into the grocery store to buy a loaf of bread. You took so much of that fiat to get you a loaf of bread. And that's kind of where these statements come from, and true to a large degree. But I want to talk about it in that we just watched silver go from the mid-20s at the beginning of the year to now the mid-80s today. So, has bread gone up that much in value? Not even close. So, yes, when I go to the grocery store, groceries are all up. And so inflation is definitely hitting the grocery shelves. And that's what most people are noticing. And in fact, that is a statement that's generally kind of made, is that, prices are going up. You don't hear people say, the value of our dollar is going down. What they generally say is, prices are going up. Well, you're saying the same thing, whichever way you're saying that. It's just that the understanding of what is taking place is where the value is at. For those of us that are stackers, we kind of understand this, in that it's not the prices are going up and your grocery store guy is just being a hard case and he's just trying to take more money from you. He's just passing the cost on to the consumer of what it's costing him to get those goods delivered to his store. So he's not jacking up, at least for the most case, he's not jacking up the prices just because he wants to. This is the price of the goods that cost for him to get into the store. He's still making the same percentage of money to pay his employees and keep the store open. It's just that the prices seem to be going up for the consumer, and they're right to say that. However, the reason the prices are going up is not just for some unknown reason. It's because of the magic money has, because we're printing too much paper fiat promises that there's not real goods to back. And so once the population starts to say, oh, it's, instead of saying, oh, the prices are going up, when they start to say, oh, it's our dollar that's losing all its value, that's when the game's kind of up. And that's when you start to get into hyperinflation and people start to play hot potato with their fiat dollars, where they're willing to buy anything quickly right when they get paid to get out from under the depreciating fiat dollar and get into something of real value, tangible goods, commodities. And so the first thing to experience a value increase in this setting is the monetary metals, the precious metals, because they've proven themselves for thousands of years to be able to weather the storm of a empire losing its stronghold over nations, over the country, with their magic money hat. And so with that, I just wanted to touch on, just because silver and gold go to $100 does not mean that, doesn't equal out that, oh, bread's going to cost you $100 a loaf now. Like, that's often referred to, but it's not an actual one-to-one thing that happens. Now, I do agree that you're going to see these prices continue to go up, or another way to say that is you're going to see the value lost from your fiat currency purchasing power, but you can see these rapid rises, these extreme jumps. Like, we just watched silver in these last couple months go from $38 or whatever it was, blew through 40, then through 50, then through 60, then through 70, now to 80. And that is nowhere close to what you're seeing in the grocery store. Now, the past couple years, I might have argued the opposite way. Seems like groceries are going up more than my silver. So, but once people start to wrap their mind, especially people who are monetary economic minds that watch the market, watch trade, understand values of currencies, they're going to be the first to start playing hot potato with their fiat currency. And I believe that's what we're seeing now. And in fact, could be that we're actually seeing that the actual supply demand is starting to take hold of the market, in that people are needing silver and it's not there. And that's causing this price to jump up so quickly. But that's going to cause people to look at silver and gold's value going up and understand that their fiat is losing value. And that's when the first place the fiat will go, when people start to understand that their fiat dollar is losing its purchasing power, is into something that's stable, real, has proven itself through every hyperinflation, which is every fiat currency ever to exist, has ended up at zero. And that's what we're entering into now. And so silver and gold way outperform everything else, because that's kind of the, for those that have the knowledge and understanding of what's going on, that's the first place that they're going to put their value. And so silver and gold can way outperform some of these other commodities. And just because silver might jump up, it's jumped to 80, might get to 150 in these next few months, I have no idea. I'm just saying, at this rate, if it continues for another month or two, we're going to be way through the triple digits, and you probably won't see the bread price differ much on your grocery shelf. So, I get a little bit frustrated when I hear that same comment over and over and over of, careful what you wish for. $100 silver means $100 loaf of bread. No, not necessarily. Now, you're on the right track that, if you're seeing the precious metals value rise a whole lot, it could most definitely be the first place you want to look is your fiat currency being devalued at a high rate? And if it is, then yes, you're going into a hyperinflation, and you need to get into whatever commodities you can to preserve your wealth. But there's going to be quite a big gap in understanding and these values jumping, and the amount that gold and silver can jump up, can gap up, will way override the amount that these other commodities, including bread, will rise. So with that long spiel, sorry for talking so long, Space Miner. I just kind of wanted to get some of those base things out there. What say you? Welcome in, everybody.
How much time do I have?
Well, hopefully not as much as I do.
No. You're right. This is a. I think we're looking at this. We tend to look at this wrong, and it's our use of common language. I think we've learned to adopt like words like money, and apply it to our cash fiat. And when our cash fiat leaves the measuring stick of gold and silver, right? Then you have to say, what are we measuring this? And so we, as a nation, and our common use language, we develop this use case of saying money, 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 money this, money that. And so when we see the price of gold, we say, oh, price of gold's going up. And here's the stacker community saying, no, that's the dollar going down. And this all has to do with like, well, when we're talking about retaining values, using values, trading values, we have to remember that the market is not simply gold. It's not simply silver. It's not simply copper, rhodium, rhenium, whatever. It's a conglomeration of all of these, and that's why you can see, of course, gold and silver are the first to respond in the market. They're the one everybody knows. They're the stable go-to for thousands of years, right? So
Yep.
of course they're the first to respond.
Yeah.
And when you get a lot of response from a lot of people, I mean, look, we're in a different kind of world. We're sharing information rapidly. We're able to share volumes of information, and as we start sharing this information out, there are enough people to make a difference in these markets. And so when you have different quantities or volumes of commodity, and you have different lasting values of commodity and different trade values and desires of commodities, you start, yeah, you're going to lean on gold and silver to start with. It's something the whole world has, the whole world uses. It's something the whole world knows. Like you said, it's known to weather. But on that note, that doesn't mean that the rest of the nation can't continue on like normal with a slight price increase. We kind of discussed this on the last one. Somebody like Boeing, they can buy up, almost the entire world's supply of rhenium, and they don't care about the price because their market is something else, you know. And all they have to do is add in a couple dollars on the price tag or whatever they got to do, and it doesn't matter. It's a much larger price tag in the end. And so we can see a sustained investment, a sustained swinging of investment into these precious metals without the whole market collapsing and crashing. It just means there are a whole bunch of people that trust the dollar less. And that's kind of like the whole thing about like entering and exiting silver and gold. And should I trade my silver and gold? And these are where these discussions come from. Because if you leave silver today, are you going to be able to come back in tomorrow? Becomes the question. And that's kind of like that's the big breach between the stacker community and your common fiat holder is convincing these guys that you need to trust this more than this. And when you go and look at gold, one last thing, because I really got to say this, is when you go to look at gold on these charts, here in America, we're looking at it in USD. Over in Australia, by the way, hello, Aka. Over in Australia, they're looking at it and think differently. They're looking at a different chart with a different response. That line literally looks different. It literally looks different. And as you float from currency to currency, that response to gold is going to be different. But what you are going to see amongst all of them is a pattern of stability, an increase in value. Because when markets are crumbling or struggling, the fiat crumbles or struggles. And when you go putting in the magic money printer, into the equation, which they have their reasons, they're trying to fend off debt. They think if we just keep printing the heck out of this, then we'll have enough dollars to pay that bill. And if we can just do this long enough, we'll be done paying the bill. But they all know it's spiraling downwards into nothingness, and everybody's exiting. There's going to be a lot of places people exit into, and it's going to be commodity at the end of the day. And that's why BRICS is working like it does. Because at the end of the day, you're really communicating in values of commodities. Like, who cares if you got all the gold in the world if you ain't got oats to feed yourself?
Yeah, and that's why, and I don't think a lot of people probably initially realized this, is that's why suddenly tariffs became this big new word that everybody learned just recently. That's why we're seeing these things, is because real goods are where it's actually at. We've been exporting our fiat dollar for real goods for our history, for my lifetime, and even before. And it's given us a very good lifestyle. But, sadly, that those things are coming to an end. So I know something I wanted to point out, that you were talking about Boeing with rhenium, how Boeing uses 80% of the rhenium market. For those that you don't know, rhenium is a precious metal, or an industrial metal, unknown metal by lots of people, and it's in small supply but used a lot in industry. And Boeing uses 80% of the yearly mining supply just on their jet engines alone. And something that we were talking about earlier, a lot of these unknown metals are not all that valuable right now, simply because there's no knowledge on them. And it's not like Boeing, knowing that they're using 80% of the yearly mine supply of rhenium, is going to go out to the world and say, hey, look at this metal that we're using 80% of the yearly mining supply. Aren't you guys interested in this? They're gonna try to keep that as quiet as possible, because they don't want that, the value of, they don't want anybody else in it. They don't want that value going up because they want it as cheap as possible. So a lot of these rare unknown metals, once gold and silver make these gaps up, these big jumps that they're making, that's going to cause people to look under the metals rock, as you might say. And once you look under that rock, you're going to view all these other unknown metals that people are not paying attention to, not aware of. And I think it could get very interesting in lots of these unknown metals because, once people start going through the metals with a fine-tooth comb, seeing what happened to silver, to gold, to platinum, to palladium, to osmium, to rhenium, to, iridium, all these metals that people don't know, they're going to start, what else don't we know? It's going to cause a deep dive into these unknown metals. And there's going to be a lot of them that just perform greatly because it's at the end of the day, it's the unique characteristic to each different metal is why the metals have different names. They have different melting points. They have different pliabilities. They have different alloying ability. So, and you can't just get that from another metal. You need that one specific metal that has those specific traits. And so, that's where you're going to get a lot of your, unknown gains because no one knows about these metals. And once people start looking into it, there's going to be a lot of value to be had there, in my opinion.
Well, and may I add to this, is a lot of, like you were kind of pointing out earlier, look, Boeing has the capacity to absorb 80% of an annual world supply. Okay. And so when you start considering that, it's not the only metal that carries qualities of rarity, of availability. And the big secret is, like you were pointing out, they don't listen. If the public responded to some of these metals, if the public woke up, got wise, and started responding to these metals in mass, Boeing would have to compete all of a sudden in price, when everybody else is absorbing it too and willing to pay a little bit more, willing to pay $1 more today, $2 tomorrow, or $5 swings a day in silver. You see? And as long as there's a market willing to respond and the public is absorbing this, we do have an impact on certain industries. Some are so big that the public bears little to zero consequence.
Yeah.
It really, they're just so big.
Yeah.
But there are metals out there that if the public was to respond, and stackers were just like, all right, I'll go grab 1 ounce, it'd be off the shelf tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we're talking about these, we talk about volatility as if it's scary. Volatility can be really awesome when everything's absorbed and now people got to compete with the price again. It can be a good thing too,
Right. Yeah. And, you were talking about, them printing money and not having a lot of other choices. Our monetary system, once you look deeply into our monetary system, you realize they can't not print anymore. They literally, to keep the system going, they have to print it. And luckily for a long time now, we've had other countries that were willing to buy up our debt or to back the value of the money being printed, kind of, is another way to look at it. Well, now we're finding that a lot of countries are actually selling our dollar back into the system. They don't want to buy anymore. They're trying to get rid of what they got. And so that leaves one buyer, the buyer of last resort, like you might hear some people saying, which is the Fed themselves. They're issuing and buying it back at the same time, basically. And when you reach that point, it can't be undone. It's a system that you have to continually put more and more in to keep the system alive, because every loan that's made gets made that it needs to be paid back with interest. Well, that interest doesn't exist, and you can't pay it back unless more of that fiat gets pumped in. So the system literally has to keep putting it in. That's why you would print money and buy it back, because you got to come up with some way to put more in, or it all comes down. And that just continually takes value out of your hard-earned fiat dollar. And so once we're at a point where this can't really turn around now, how long it takes people to figure it out is a whole nother question. How they plan on rolling it over into a new system that might confuse everyone and kick the can down the road a little ways, that's a whole nother question. So there's a few questions to it, but there is really no question to, is the value of our fiat gonna turn around and suddenly gain more value? At this point, no. It's gonna have to be some major changes for anything except great devaluation of our fiat. So, Gold Maple, welcome in. Think Differently, good to have you. The Bud Files, welcome in. Jake's Custom Parts, thanks for being here. Go ahead.
Jake, I don't know specifically about a futures market of stocks for the rare PMs. Usually that's going to be done through your refineries and your mines and your major, I don't know, recyclers, is where you'll catch the most of the stock with those guys. And also, I wanted to point at Think Differently for a second. Information and knowledge about the metals market is the key to the arbitrage. It's a wealth transfer. And that's kind of what B and I were discussing earlier, with like, look, the reason the gold and silver is one of the first to respond, it's because it's what everybody knows. But if we know where they're going with this, you can kind of beat them to their own game, because like I was hinting at earlier, there's still a whole entire world of other metals moving that have not made their movement yet, because you got big companies that are kind of like suppressing the information, don't want you to know that there's metals like indium out there that are, rarer than most, a companion metal, so they're not like going directly for it. They're dependent on another, primary ore to be mined. And like, if the public got involved, these prices would go through the roof overnight on most of these. And so, yes, the power is just getting ahead of this a little bit. While everybody's fighting over silver and gold, which it doesn't hurt to have, like as a communicating monetary metal, you have a lot of really good, strong investment that could empower the people if they were involved in some of these markets. There's a couple, like B was saying earlier, like when you're looking at these, there's some key check marks to be made in some of these metals. And when they meet those check marks, well, dang it, they're just as logical as the metal next to it, and at the end of the day, these are the ones that are going to run the world, like the rare earths. We need these for computer chips, like, what are we going to do without it? We're going to have to communicate in another metal that they value as well. So we better have a stack ready of something. So
yeah, I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these crazy talking points, like, oh, we're gonna take Greenland and Canada, and and you see these wars going on and lines being redrawn, and Turkey just got taken over, and like all of this that's because there's major shifts taking place right now, because the fiat American paper fiat dollar has been the global anchor for the world, and all of our fiat currencies are tied to it. And for those countries that are paying attention to these fiat markets, they realize what's taking place, and so there is a scramble on the fiat money war. The fiat dollar war is basically a commodity war once you get down into it a little ways, which is what we're starting to experience. Because ultimately, what does your fiat dollar get you? It gets you real goods and services, right? And so that's actually the value, is the goods and the services. And so that's why you're seeing these wars and lines being redrawn and all of that stuff. Gold Maple says, what's the solution? Several solutions. One, go back to the gold standard where all currencies are tied. And that's a key point. Rafi makes this point a lot, which I agree with. That is, everything, all of our values that we understand, a can of pop costs $2 today or what. The reason we have that value point is because it all ties back to our history. What was it worth yesterday, the day before, the day before, and eventually you get back to what it cost in gold. And once the value goes away from this fiat dollar and that we're experiencing in the price is rising, well, it's we're going to get back to how much can you get for a piece of gold. And so ultimately that is what's happening right now. It's just people wouldn't be able to put their finger on it. So, and then another thing Gold Maple says, too, get rid of fiat totally and use digital currency, bank-based cryptocurrencies. Well, again, now you've actually went to a deeper level of nothingness that can be extremely pumped and debased, devalued, I guess the word would be. And so, Lynette Zhang, I don't know if anybody follows her or not, but she's talking about this constantly, how they're going to go into these new systems and they're going to try to convince you that, oh, the cryptocurrency is something that we can trust. But in actuality, it will be a short-lived thing, and we're going to be right back to the point that we're at now with our dollar. So yeah, it's a thing of knowledge.
I've been happy to hear out the tokenized thing, just for the record.
Tokenized is different than cryptocurrency or
right, because whether it's digital or paper, right, it's still backed by nothing.
Well, tokenized probably will be backed by something, right? So tokenized, if you have, so pretty much, I know you say you're open to it.
Yeah, but that's what they're going to get you with. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, no, just that, like you say, if you're going to use tokenization with gold and silver, where some companies are already doing this, which I'm like, you have Glint Gold is one. It's like a credit card where you swipe your card, gold gets removed from your account down to the nanogram. I would consider that a tokenized asset, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're just taking the value of the gold that you have in your account, you're tying it to ones and zeros on a card, and when you swipe that tokenization removes X amount of gold from your account. So that's a type of tokenization in my mind, if I'm understanding it right, that I don't really have that much of a problem with, especially if you're having true audits. This is where things can get hairy, but I understand that idea of a tokenized based product. But I am very much not for tokenizing everything like they're trying to push for, where we're going to tokenize water and tokenize the trees and tokenize the grass and tokenize your food.
Comment real quick, because he's spot on with this. With the some BRICS countries are using silver to tokenize transactions. They're doing it now.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like with BRICS, or I mean with Glint, same thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you can call that back, if you can recover your tangible out of that, I'd say, yeah, good on a system.
Right. Exactly.
But if they can block you from pulling the tangible out of that, then you know you've got just as much corrupt and wash system as the last one. It's no better than these vaults that came up empty with promises to pay in their vaults. You know,
Yes.
like that was bad. And
Yeah.
if you can't ledger on a real life token, meaning a tangible piece at the end of the day, because that's the one problem stackers have is communicating distance with speed, you know,
Right. But see,
communicating instant transaction. And
yeah,
so
and that's
like I'm for tokenization, yes. But if I can recover my token for something, then it's just a fiat again.
right. Yeah, it has to be for the real good. You need to be able to trade it one to one on demand for the real good if it's to be legit in my mind. What Gold Maple here is saying is something that I was kind of pointing out. The dollar is used internationally as a medium of exchange and settling debts owed by countries. But, well, for BRICS, for example, it just went back to gold, basically, is now how they're settling there, amongst other goods and services, but settling out finally in gold. And what Gold Maple's pointing out there is what I'm talking about, where we're seeing these lines being redrawn between countries. These fiat based wars turning into commodity wars, actual goods and services, and that's simply because these other countries are aware the gig is up basically on the fiat US dollar having this global reserve value, because it's to a point where we're not keeping honest books and we're printing just out of thin air like crazy. Therefore, the value is not actually there, causing this type of global catastrophe and destruction and controversy between countries. And yeah, but there's a bunch of good.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
I kind of want to uh, I'll use Jake to segue this. Is he says that's why BRICS countries built all those vaults around the world. Right. This tokenization is very important to the whole. I think it's important for us to be able to communicate it in, right? But the one thing I worry about is runaway tokenization. Like, and you've kind of brought this to mind before when we talk about like tokenizing land where 1,000 people can own an acre, you know, like that's kind of a problem because the when you start microfractioning everything down to a degree that it's no longer a usable source, you know, it's no longer a transactional material, you know, it's kind of like print more money in a way, you know, like, oh, no biggie, we'll just divide it again, we'll just split the hair again, we'll just split the hair again, you know. And so
Exactly.
I really think what was that?
No, I'm just laughing at how you said that. That's funny. We'll just split the hair again. We'll split it again. And no, that's funny. That's true.
And that's what I worry about. So we need a real true ledger, you know, and like our ledger right now, our gold ledger, the infamous vault, you know, like they're never going to tell us the truth about that vault. And I'll tell you why. It's an issue of national security. You know, if the world finds out we're empty or we're fuller than we should be, you know, then we've got some big USD trust issues going on again, you know. So,
Yes. Well, and well deserved, sadly. I mean, I hate that it's the case that, we can't trust our dollar and we can't trust our governments, and they're lying like I can't believe that someone can lie just on a daily basis, and that's horrible to admit to. It's something that I personally despise and hate, because now the world looks at the U.S., where they used to hold us in high regard, and now we're becoming the laughing stock. The people mock us and dislike us, and it's understandable, and a sad case to be under. Boy, we've got a lot of good comments here in the chat today. I'm trying to keep up, but you'll have more inequity. Yeah, yes, but But the good thing about that is for goods and services, when you're a country, you have to give over those that actual asset, and now someone else has it, and that gives them the ability. Like that's a true ratio, and that's what we need to get back to is value for value. That's what we've lost. We've went into a world of imagination, and there's no real value behind things where there was a value for value basis.
No,
And that's what I think personally that we have to get back to.
um, I I'm kind of with Maple a little bit on this. If you limit it to one functionary monetary unit, a sole monetary unit, it can create inequity. Kind of like what I was speaking to earlier. You can't just hyper divide everything. At some point, you know, wealth accumulates. It has a habit of it. So without like a certain sense of checks and balances, you know, you can get runaway values, and so like gold's check and balance right away, silver and platinum, it's like a natural check and balance to gold, right? And so I think we already see how nations are responding to this through the BRIC system because they're like, look, we'll just go rice for rice. We'll go rice for cows.
Yeah,
And anything that gets beyond this that we can't make up in rice or cows, we'll just deliver in gold.
exactly. There's the
And
bricks in a nutshell. Yep.
right. And I think that does look, I know these people are not our friends, but it doesn't mean that they're wrong
Right.
with how they're
Right.
on it. We're kind of looking into the future in a way.
Of course.
We've been provided a glimpse of what happened. Like look at China. Print, 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 crash, 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 scramble for commodity, start interchanging in commodities. All of these guys that crashed, fiats, that completely crashed fiats, all responded the same way. We need to communicate in commodity. And you're right, like we have to watch out for inequality through single usage. So yeah,
Well,
I think checks and balances is important.
and I would like to talk about that, the single usage in Mineko 64, great channel. I don't know how many of you guys follow Mineko 64, but he's always making a great point, which plays to this, and that is you don't want a government calling out a one thing is now money, like we've done with the dollar. That's kind of how we got ourselves into this situation. You want to say free market. And then when silver jumps up and everybody wants silver, well, then let silver trade at what it wants to trade at. When the people want to go back into gold, let gold trade. That way, when you have a free, open economy like that, that you can roll out of one asset into another, and no one has complete monopoly on the value and the market. The value can go where it needs to go and keep things nimble and on the move, and that way you can't corrupt one section, monopolize it like we have with the fiat dollar. Like this is going to go down in history once this thing settles out, is the biggest I mean, people are going to look at this for I don't know how long, but like, how did the US take the whole world onto a global fiat standard, and look at the results down the road of what happened. I mean, this will be, because we've had lots of fiat standards go to zero. Just this is the first time we've had a global currency that's going to go to zero, and has everybody tied into it. So
And to kind of bring this back to like silver and gold for a second, we're going to see some corrections happen. You can't swing like this. Like it with going with what we were saying earlier, these things can operate semi-independently. They are a response, not causal. Buying into these is a response. It's not a causal effect. Um,
yes.
so when the people are going to want to make money on these purchases they've made, they're going to want to make money. Dude, it's at an all-time high. We're going to see somebody make money, but how quickly will that be consumed? And when they exit that gold, they have to exit into something. What's it going to be? You know, you got a billion options out there, but what are you going to trust, right? And that's the decision these people are going to make. So like gold, silver, it could all slam down, but how far would it slam down when everybody else is trying to exit something else like fiat, you know? And so kind of back to that measuring stick I was talking about earlier. What's your measuring stick of value that you want to carry through the world? And I look at fiat, man, and that's like a rubber ruler, you know? It's just what is it today kind of thing.
Right.
But if your measuring stick is in a tangible or a commodity of some sort, then it might be beef. That might be your measuring stick. How many cows is it going to cost me to get that new pickup? How many cows is it going to cost me to pay my mortgage?
Well, see, that's open market for you right there. Like, right, if you're a rancher, that's exactly how you're viewing things: is how many cows do I got out there in the pasture, and what's the price of beef right now? And I mean, you're watching these, that's your market. That's what you're paying attention to. I mean, I grew up on a ranch, and in fact, this year cattle prices are just at prices people never imagined. And so, that's what's great about having that free market, because that allows for the little guys wherever you're at. And like for me, that's why I got into silver, is because I could look out into the future and say, whoa, look at what's taking place. I need to protect myself. This is going to be a good place to go. And so that's what is great about a free market. Instead of just saying, this piece of paper that I can print in my printer over here is what everybody has to accept for goods, and like, whoa, now we might have issues there, right? So, but a free market where actual goods and services are able to float seems to be the answer there. So,
In my world, it's like all of this stuff all of the silver, the gold, the bitcoins, the XRPs, these are so I can buy something real from my home, from my life, whether it's food to feed my family or the truck to get down the road or the extortion from my government. I got to pay for this. And so I'm going to be moving in and out of a lot of different resources. I'm going to be responding to my environment, this environment we call life, and like I've made a lot of cash with cryptos. They're great, but man, when I buy crypto, I'm in and out, man. Chunk chunk. Make that cash and get the hell out. That was my attitude, Make that cash, get in, get out, get in, get out. And I was resting on USD all the time. Digitally accounted for USD. It didn't even feel more real until it got to the bank, but when it gets to the bank, guess what it is? Zeros and ones again. So like now I want it in paper to feel a little bit more secure. Now I got my paper, but now the paper seems freaking useless, it to preserve, because I remember trying to save, for everything, trying to save USD for everything, and the price was growing faster than I could save it.
yeah.
I was doing everything I was supposed to, so now I needed to be able to compete. I got to switch it into something else. I need another vehicle, another method of transport of value to try to like get some of my value back. I went into, precious metals to stabilize and gain, hopefully gain. That was the goal. And I did.
Yeah. And see, for me, that's been it's a big point for me, and I struggle getting it out on my channel. I don't know how exactly to verbalize it, but it's, you want to be in something that's gonna pay for your life, as you're saying, but do so in a way that's not jeopardizing yourself as well. And like, sure, I can go buy into, I always use like defense stocks or things that, well, I know the value of that's going to go up. Like I knew back in Bitcoin back in the day, that, looking ahead and knowing the fiat's going down, anything else that's, limited in value and supposed to be monetarily tradable. Well, of course, Bitcoin's this new thing so sure, I see a lot of possibility for value increase there, but Another key that I look at is you don't want to get into something that has a negative correlation with it that's going to eat at you from a direction maybe that you don't see. Like, sure, I can just go rob a bank and I'll have lots of money. But what's the problem with that? The problem with that is you could have the cops kicking your door down at any time to arrest you because, in the damage that was done through robbing the bank. So you don't want that type of negativity attached to your value increase. So that's what made me so excited about silver is, look, this is an honest weights and balances is what the biblical aspect of this would be, is just weights and just balances. And here you have a metal that preserves its value throughout time, is needed in liquid worldwide, is selling at the rate at the free market is asking for it now. I believed it was manipulated, but since they're the one doing the bad deed of manipulation, that's what gives me the opportunity. And so for me, you want to look for those preservations of wealth or those wealth gaining possibilities in a way that's not actually detrimental on the flip side of it. Like, this was a win-win-win for me. Whereas, I don't know, crypto to me is kind of a mechanism for enslaving the world into a worse fiat, even if it does make you rich. Like, well, but now all your value is tied up on online, and just to access online, what am I going to have to give away of myself to access that? And that's another power that someone else holds that I don't hold in my hand. And so I look very closely at those back end problems that might come after you for that wealth increase. So I don't know if that made sense or not, but
at some point, I think we as a nation, a society, a people group have to ask ourselves honestly, is the convenience worth the ethic? Is it going to be worth it? This convenience, this safety net, this whatever it is.
For sure, that's a great point. Exactly.
Should we speed it up? Like earlier I was complaining, about the speed of transaction, like our ability to be able to communicate, right, at these hyper speeds. But if you look into the ethical foundations, the moral foundations of our, like what our founding fathers were trying to do, they were trying to slow government down. They were trying to slow down the knee-jerk response. They were trying to keep society from geeking out every 5 seconds, and provide us a stable path forward. And so if we kind of approach that with the same financial attitude, do we really want to communicate at hyper speed as a people? Do we want to slow this down and make it a little bit more meaningful? Take a little bit more time to consider our values, maybe think of something we hadn't thought of before, maybe be a little bit more ingenuitive or thrifty with our resources. That could do us a lot of good,
Yeah, that's something that has been being brought up a lot is, I hope we don't have to go back to, I have to ship you an ounce of gold, and man, it would take a couple days to get there. Well, with as much headache and back and forth, I bought something, but then they decided that they didn't actually want to sell it to me because my credit card was under another name, or my, you get some weird kickbacks sometimes, like I bought something, but now they didn't send it to me because of my address was different or something. It's like, well, that doesn't happen with real exchange. If I hand you an ounce of gold, you're giving me something of value back, and that's done deal. You both walk away, but you're both happy. And if I often find myself now today sending checks instead of trying to pay by PayPal, or whether it charges me 4% and then might kick it back for whatever weird reason, or Zelle, we only do transactions up to 1,000. Like, there's all these little slow hiccups for these conveniences that are I would much rather just receive an ounce of gold in the mail and have to wait 2 days for it. Like, that's just 2 days. My goodness. Well, I don't know, man. For real, true value, is it that bad? Like, I don't know. I know most people would say no to that, but really, I don't know. Like the old saying goes, like, anything worth it takes time or has has pain involved with it. Took great effort to get that great reward. Like these are long standing truths throughout history, and it seems like our generation is so quickly trying to escape into convenience that we're losing, real value. So there's something there to that. My
I've seen it with my own family, the way great grandpa bought a butt ton of land and passed it to the boys, and they just kind of forgot about it, I guess, got apathetic about it. It didn't seem like it was any value to them. And here in our modern culture, man, land is, well, they
value.
ain't making any more of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
they were so short, so short-sighted about it. And I think we get short-sighted with our current values. We're so quick to, you know, sometimes like spend off our silver and our gold to pay these emergency bills when it's like, man, was it really, like, could you have just lived without it? Like, how many times did you need that phone? You know,
right, right.
like how many times did you actually like need the phone? Like some people more than others, sure, right? But
Yeah, yeah,
it's just one example. But point is like, yeah, slowing down and taking more time to appreciate what you got and kind of like using your resources a little bit thriftier could be a really nice. But at the end of the day, dude, we have a real dilemma. The world is communicating at hyper speed. We like you said, like waiting for the silver in the mail. Well, you got to pay that too, you know. And these do take time, and the time you spend waiting and buying. I mean, with modern the way modern prices move, I mean, you could lose a lot of values, and you can't communicate big money like that. So we got to respond, right?
right, right. As to Silverboy nailed it on the head here. Good things come to those who wait. Exactly, exactly.
Um, I'd like to see us putting more as a nation, also a little bit more emphasis into what we got. Like, here's one like anecdotally, my boy came in the other day with his little game system. He's got his little game system, and I asked him if a certain feature was active or not, and he said, "Well, I don't know. I don't use it." And I had to stop him, and I said, "Hey, you don't have a fully functioning unit." Well, I didn't think I'd need it. I wasn't using it at the moment. It seemed good enough. And I was like, that's a problem, dude. And I said, that's the same problem our nation went through. We said good enough on materials and resources. Good enough. Well, we could get it over there. Yeah, it's a little cheaper. We never invested in the resources that were right here, right now. We never activated that function. And now we're on a huge delay because of it. When we need it, and we do,
Yeah,
it's not an available resource right now. And we're on lag. We're a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades or more away from some resources being available to us again. And we still got to make it a whole generation until those are activated and producing again. And so this is part of why we see these values spike. Like, look, it could be a long time when we're drilling down to the bottom of these silver resources and they're saying, all right, on to the next exploration, you know, that means there's going to be a lag in production while they dig down to meet that resource again.
yep, yep. And boy, we're seeing that in the metals right now. I mean, people like me and others that I've been following. That's probably where I get my stuff from. But just been beating the table on that for a while. Like, and with silver right now, like, because that's always the argument made. Oh, well, if silver price goes up, we'll just bring on new silver mines. Well, man, silver mines can take 10, 15 years to bring online, and we're going to need that much faster than 10 to 15 years. So,
Yeah, what was it? Silver Tiger, um, the that big mining project down in Mexico, right? Um, those guys have been working on this for 10, 15 years. 10, 15 years of exploring, developing the infrastructure, arranging power, you know, you know, finding the buyers, the works. They got to develop every part and piece. They got to have everything in line. They got to have these agreements in place before they can get the next agreement in place. And so, like, when's the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday,
Right.
and then
Yeah, exactly.
start responding. This is how, like, look, we need to start responding. You, me, you guys, we need to start responding in the same way. We've got a lot of resources that are really cheap and accessible right now compared to what they will be.
Yes.
We can
Yes.
access those now. We get to gain all the benefits of planting the tree yesterday.
Yes, and that's ultimately what I'm doing here in the metals. Like I have a big water storage tank. I have some canned goods because you don't want to spend all of your value immediately on the day things go down on getting your food. So get yourself some food. As someone said here, when they're in their garden, they're berry rich. I agree. When we moved into our place, we planted a bunch of bushes, and they've been giving us berries, raspberries galore each year. We got grapes, and you want to, like Space Miner's saying here, you want some fruit on a tree, you best plant that tree last year because it's going to take a few years before it's bearing any fruit on it. And yeah, that's all great points. And that's what is good about silver and gold ultimately is you can only stack so much food or it'll start going bad before you get to it. So yes, get your food, get your water that you can store, get some straws of such like that. But for the long term, it's gold and silver that allows you that buying power in the future for those things that you're going to need when it becomes out of reach, because like you say, our economy is going to be coming down level further and further. A lot of people in the chat talking about how China is taking over in production and goods, and they're covering the holes that we're putting up in tariffs. Other countries are coming, they're starting to supply those problem areas. So that's going to end up hurting us over time, and we're going to need more value to get the same goods and services that we're used to getting now with our fiat dollars. So all great points, and one of the reasons I see these metals as being such a shiny thing at the moment, a good thing to be in. Nickel says need bees, right? That's the other thing. Take care of your bees. Indeed.
Yeah. So my experience, I say it all the time, but it's pretty simple for me, is get your house right, get your home right, right? You want to
Yep.
you want your dirt, you want your roof, you want your water, you want your food. And like you say all the time, B, stack that food till it rots. You know? But when you get to the point where your food's rotting, you need to put your money elsewhere.
Yep.
We still got to buy stuff at the end of the day. Like I say, spend your money while it's worth something. Spend it while it's worth something. Buy something that's going to last and be done spending, and preserve all the rest of your values and precious metals, and other investments. Like, look, I'm not completely opposed to other people investing in crypto. Like B and I, we're not like really doing that anymore. But if you want to make some quick cash, that's one way to do it. You want to invest in some stocks, sure, but be prepared for things going wrong. Electronic systems fail. Well, your money's, dude. It's hard enough to get your refund back in a reasonable way online. Just to get a refund back could take 5 to 10 days, and it's going to go through 3 institutions before it hits you. It would be nice if you already owned all your stuff, right? And you
Yeah.
had something to communicate in value with other people. It could be your cash. Some people are going to want to communicate in cash, no matter if the world's burning around them.
Yeah.
Keep a little cash,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
know, but you know, I just so for me again, this is just my experience. This is just what I do. Get your house right, kill your debt. You know, spend your money while it's worth something on what you need, and just be done spending. Put everything else into something that's going to last better than paper. You know, last longer than paper.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. So I want to touch on this point. Someone was pointing out earlier about, are there ETFs or is there a market for some of these unknown metals? And a lot of these unknown metals, no, there is no ETF for. There's no financial mechanism that you can just go and invest and get return on that product. You have to actually have the product. Um, so like with osmium, rhenium, I'm sure with like
know,
iridium,
yeah,
lots of these metals are things that you just need to physically get a hold of. However, we are, as people who've been investing in metals for a while, there are those of us that have access to some of these rare metals. Me and Space Miner both partner with the Osmium Institute Germany, and we can supply crystallized osmium to anyone who's interested. That's a very niche, rare new metal to the market. Rhenium is another big rare metal that a lot of people don't know about or how to invest in or get to. Ian Everard of ARC SGO out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I have him on every other Wednesday night and talk to him about metals in the market. You can get a hold of him. In fact, let me throw up his, in case anyone is interested in that. There is his info to contact Ian Everard of ARC, and he can help you invest in some of these rare metals as well. But that is actually something that's kind of nice about these metals, is that there is no manipulation ETF that you can just hammer these prices down or hammer them up or manipulate it one direction or the other. It's actual supply and demand. And that's one thing that those of us in those metals kind of chuckle about or point out to people, is actually with these metals there isn't manipulation like that. So it is very much supply and demand, which can work very well in for you in those types of circumstances that can't be manipulated. So an interesting thing about those metals I thought I would point out.
yeah. And in fact, we were seeing earlier in there. I think it was Jake was saying, he was like looking for like a lot of the PGMs, and I'm like, man, a lot of these you're either going to own the tangible or you're going to be aiming at investing in the mining companies, the refining companies, and the recycling companies. But like he was pointing out, he's like, man, a lot of these guys have locked out the public. They're all private, you know, and you. So at the end of the day, yeah, like it can be very difficult to get your hands on some of these, but it just goes to reflect again this is also the same swinging power of it, because when they need it, and they will, it's good. You do good for end products too. A lot of end products like catalytics and stuff, catalytic ceramic making companies and stuff is like a good like end usage on a stock one. Um, but no, honestly, that's like B saying, it's completely private, and it's really beautiful in that regard. Like you find it through the communities, you find it by getting to know people, you find it by like chatting with us, and then hey, well, we have an in, we know a guy, and maybe we can get some of that. And for a lot of them, that is the market. That's how it works, from like mining to like the osmium. Like, yeah, it kind of has to like almost be requested. It almost has to be requested. Like there almost has to be a demand for it already for them to even go through the effort of it.
So a few things I want to touch on. One, nickel is $7 a pound. Yeah, that's awesome. I have an order of nickel coming in. So if anyone is interested in nickel, Stay tuned. I should have some nickel available. Also, I have some 4.9s copper coming in, which is a higher grade than the copper 3.9 rounds that you buy at the store, which are generally $2 for 1 ounce. We're getting rid of 4.9s fine for 2 ounces for $1, so you can flip that on its head, which is a pretty good deal. Makes it much more worthwhile. Also, oh no, it's slipping my mind. Where did that go to? The gold to silver ratio. So that's something that I'm going to do or have planned in my mind to do. I am very heavily invested in silver because my understanding of it is that silver is going to outperform gold once things get going, like we're starting to see right now. Silver outperformed gold by 2 times. It was double the value gain this last year in silver, just the last few months, really, to gold, even though gold is doing very well. And so I continue. I think that, in fact, I'll pull up the conversion rate right now. I believe that will continue to close the gold silver ratio. I think it's going to continue to close. Let me get to a year here. We're down at gold silver ratio is now down to 54 on the year. 54. And we started when I had Ian of Arc Silver Gold on a few months ago when it was at 105, the gold silver ratio, and I said, should you trade in your gold for silver? He said yes. Since then, it's came down from 105 to 54. So, but I'm holding out a little bit longer. I'm probably going to start at about 30. So, to each their own on what you're, where you think it's going to go and when you want to start walking over. But I'm going to start switching some over just slightly at 30. I think it will surpass that. But I'm going to start working into it at that point. So yeah, the gold to silver ratio can be something that, can be very beneficial, because I could buy twice as much gold now by being in silver as if I would have just went purely into gold. So that is, for me, something that I'm watching. I know some people don't like to do that. That's fine as well. But and of course, it's great to have both. You're always going to want to have a little bit of both, in my opinion. But I went very heavy silver, only planning to convert once I hit a certain ratio, which is about, I'm going to start at probably 30, which I'm surprised to see we're already at a 50. Woo, that happened fast.
So I trade ratios early in my stacking to kind of like help build.
Yeah.
Hurried up and bounced in and out of something, just to try to bulk up the stack initially, and it helped me. But it was tough. I wouldn't try to live my life like that anymore. I'd rather cost average, but and just buy in and cost average. But I don't know. I think I guess that's more for me on the lines of like, what's your stacking ratio? What do you want your stacking ratio to look like? But as far as like the ratio right now, like 40-1, dude, I think the market's already responded to that, and we're just inching our way to that. I'm more on the extreme side, and I think we could see within a year or two, see maybe even like a resting 115, and yeah. I think that's more than reasonable.
Yeah, no, that's not out of range for me. I that wouldn't surprise me necessarily. In fact, 15-1 was the ratio for like thousands of years, actually. So it's not that crazy to think we would get back there, especially when, if you just stop and think about it for a little bit, we use way more silver in industry than gold, and all of the gold that's ever been mined is above ground, stockpiled somewhere. The silver is constantly disappearing, constantly being used up. the amount of industry that is starting to gobble up silver and is only growing in gobbling up silver and using it, and therefore it gets put into landfills and disappears and is way high compared to gold. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see some of these, 15 to 1. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
When you look at like desperate times and you start like looking over like natural occurrence ratios, like what Nichols pointing at here is closer to 7-1. But dude, if you had the right type of industry movement, I believe you could actually still see an inversion of the ratio occur. If not only for a moment, it carries the capacity. Any one of these metals could hypothetically, if there was a high enough demand, flip ratio. And silver is close enough to gold in an economic sense that it carries the power. Like if we wanted to like consider it on an economic ratio, not a trade ratio, not a natural occurrence, not a production ratio, but like an actual like use case economic ratio, like silver's consumed far more than gold in far greater quantities and far more occurrences than gold is, that silver is.
Yeah.
And if you had a high enough demand where they're like, look, we either have gold in the vault or we have, modern life continue, well, that trade ratio could still hypothetically flip. When gold's like, look, gold's great to preserve your value, still a great investment, sure. But now you have an industry consumption that's so high level, consuming this at such a great volume that now, man, silver's the new gold. It could be platinum. I've always thought that could be possible out of platinum.
Yeah.
That platinum could return as a king of metals.
Yeah.
And so that's just I'm not speculating that it will anytime soon. I'm just saying that theoretically.
Yeah, no, I've thought about that a lot. I mean, it's not an out of range thought or concept at all, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why I'm so heavy towards silver. But yeah, awesome. I think this was a good talk on the subject. I think I got out a lot of what I was wanting to get out on the thought process of $100 silver means $100 loaf of bread. It's just not 1-to-1 like that. Yeah, you got the right idea that when the metals start to rise, you're going to see other commodities start to rise as well, because ultimately it's the fiat dollar that's losing its purchasing power. This is true, but it's not at all a 1-to-1 ratio or anything like it.
What did I say earlier? He doesn't the farmer doesn't check the price of silver before he sells his oats,
He's going to. That's going to change, but yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it is going to change, man. It already is.
Yeah.
With people like us, it is. I measure a lot of stuff and like, that's a lot of silver, So.
Yep. Cool. Thanks everybody for being here in the chat. A lot of great comments today. Appreciate you all for giving us some time and your thoughts. Enjoyed it, and yeah, we'll be back with more soon. There's plenty to come in the metals market. So I think it's nice to see this last run up and these gains that we're seeing. Of course, sad in some ways, and I do want to make that statement. That there's another statement of the careful what you wish for, and this is true. But the other side of this coin is, I don't want this to happen. I wish that our fiat dollar would remain strong forever, but that's irrational. It's unreal. It's not correct, and it's bad for other countries. Like some unhumane, however you want, some one group shouldn't have a magic money hat while everyone else has to suffer underneath it. Like, that's just not right. Um, so I don't want this to happen. But once you understand that it is going to happen, then you just need to take the proper steps to mitigate the problem. And in this case, that happens to be the metals. So yeah, I wish it wasn't going to be this way, but since it is going to be this way, I think that you should position yourself wisely, because I think this will continue. Again, not that I want it, but that it's coming. And so yeah, take proper steps. You're going to want to be on the right side of this wealth transfer, because it's taking place. JT Coin Rings, good to see you, bud. Hope you are doing well.
Look, guys, if you already own stuff, if you already own your stuff and you already own the stuff you wanted to buy, like what effect is the world going to have on you? Like, you're not going to have to knee jerk to the world. The better you get your home right, and the better you get that foundation, that hedge, that resistance of trade, with that we believe precious metals provide, then I mean the less knee jerk, the less response you have to have with the world. You can kind of isolate and insulate from a lot of these problems, and that's how you weather the tide, by not having to go to the grocery store every day, and not having to, be held captive to a truck payment or something. The sooner you can own real stuff, like, the more secure you are. Like, dude, if you got all those bases, then yeah, let it rip in crypto and everything, man. Let it rip in the stocks. Let it rip in buying up goats. I don't know, but it's like, own something.
Right.
You try to make it activate.
I'm trying to make something happen, something go off. Sometimes it does weird things when I do certain things with my fingers, but I can't get it to work right now. So.
Right,
No, thank
you.
Right. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here and subscribing and liking. Greatly appreciate you all. And we will be back soon with another one. If you don't know Space Miner, definitely go check him out. Looks like Cat 73 was saying she got some. I don't know why I'm figuring it's a she, but whoever you are, Cat 73,
you're awesome.
Sounds like you got a channel. I'll try to get over there and check you out as well. So appreciate everybody's support. Go support other people. We're all out here trying to help people out, get everybody to get in a position where they can benefit and not be hurt so bad. That's what this is all about. It's about getting people to a place where they can sustain themselves through this thing that I wish wasn't going to occur, but is occurring. That they can be okay and even thrive through it, I guess. So with that, I think I'm gonna wrap this one up. You got any last words, Space Miner?
Appreciate you, chat, man. It's good seeing you guys.
Yep. And with that, we will be back soon with more. Thanks all. We will catch you all
aren't I?
On the next one.